Now, as we observe the funeral services for some of those pupils who died on Monday in that tragic crash, let's discuss the journey of healing for the deceased family members, fellow learners, and the broader schooling community. And to help us unpack this, we are joined by Heal SA founder and CEO Mpadi Makgalo. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Oh, my goodness. On such a tragic morning, such a tragic week. I mean, as somebody who works closely with mental health of children and communities, how did you personally receive the news of this Val Scholar transport crash?
I think for us is, as people that, organizations that help young people deal with trauma, it just compounded our work. I think our country is in mourning, and I think it has an, it makes us question a lot. And one of the things that, you know, we've been dealing with is around the treatment of our children. You know, that I spoke about, for us to understand the soul of a society, we have to look at how it treats its children. And I think this incident is an indictment, not only on the scholar transport, but on us as communities, us as neighbors, us as, you know, people who work with young people, who sees these unworthy vehicles driving young people, and we sit and we say nothing. So it's a deep tragedy.
And speaking of an indictment, I mean, how, when families discover factors like expired permits or negligence, I mean, how does that information impact their grieving process?
I think I mean, the one thing about grief, the first thing that you're looking at is blame, to say who is it that we can, and it's a lot of guilt and blame, and, you know, I could have done it better, and it just talks to stopping the silence, to say when you see something is not regulated, it's not something that is within the law and affects young people, we you know, we need to stand up. We need to stand up.
And you spoke about, you mentioned grief, you mentioned blame. What sorts of emotions do parents go through typically during the process of grieving, and what are the different stages of grief?
I think for me, the first one is shock. Because it's you have in your mind your child is going to school and coming back, and within seconds of them leaving the house or minutes of them leaving the house, they're no longer you know, alive, and it's in a tragic way. And I think it's you know, there are a few stages. I think first is the shock. You also don't want to accept it. You go through remorse, you go through blame, and it varies and it's not linear. So there's as part of, I was listening to how the government Department of Education is providing psychosocial services, but I think it's for us to also remember that trauma is not a one-time event, and healing is also not linear, to say that we don't go in and support people, and after a week or so, you know, the support now starts disappearing, and families find themselves without support and help. It's very important that we have consistent support throughout those affected throughout the years, not throughout the, you know, just a few months or a few weeks.
Now, for the children who survived the crash, oh man, what are the immediate emotional and psychological risks that they face? I mean, I couldn't even bring myself to look at the visuals of the scene of the crash.
And remember, children are still developing their vocabulary and their emotional understanding of things. So, and hence I'm saying it's just not a one-time event, and it's something that has to be prolonged in terms of their support. But remember, every time you walk into a class and your friend space is vacant, when you go to the playground, they are no longer there. Those triggers and those, you know, that would affect you. And it's very, and remember, children don't have the vocabulary for I'm hurt, I'm in pain, you know, I don't know what this is. So it's very important that as psychologists, as social workers, as adults, we really are mindful of changes and shifts that we see in our children. And this can happen in behavioral changes, if, you know, a child's appetite, it's no longer there, or they're just reserved. and they don't speak as much. Encourage them to speak, and when they speak, don't have the language of get over it. It's going to be a long process. And be very, very, very compassionate and be aware and allow them safe spaces to be able to articulate how they're feeling. And it's going to find expression in different ways, but it's very important that you hold their hands and allow yourself and them to go through that process of mourning, which it's a long journey.
Are there any other signs that parents or teachers can and should be looking out for in children that maybe struggle to express themselves?
I think that the most obvious ones will be around behavioral changes in children when you see them being reserved or overactive or, lack of appetite or they're no longer able to express themselves the way they used to. So don't take that for granted and thinking that is just a once-off. Follow up with them, get professional psychosocial support.
And if these emotional challenges in children in particular are not addressed, what could be the long-term consequences?
Oh my goodness, we're talking depression, anxiety, substance abuse. So, I mean, it will range, and this would depend on what kind of support system do we create around these children. And again, it's long-term, it's not a one-hit wonder. We continue supporting them until, they find their own resilience, but it's definitely a long haul. It's not a short-term solution.
So how should schools be handling memorials, assemblies, or even conversations about this tragedy without re-traumatizing the children?
I think first in families, I would really, really caution parents to actually limit access to repeating the same stories, watching the stories on TV. Also, we know now there's AI, digital media out there where the story is being shown not in its true format. So it's very much that you actually just withdraw children from watching. And in terms of school, have honest conversation with young people, get professional support. Healers Say is one organization that can avail itself to come to these schools and have therapists, because they are going to get triggered. So when children are crying, is there somebody around them to support them and give them the immediate containment that they need at the time? So get professional help as you're having this honest conversation, and have the conversations. Grief will not disappear because you're not talking about it. Actually, us not talking about it, it worsens it.
Yeah. So before we let you go, what message do you have for the families, for the friends, students, and for the communities who are grieving now?
I think it goes back to my initial statement to say this is an indictment on all of us. But for those families that are grieving, to just comfort them, to say, I don't think we necessarily heal from grieving, but we experience it differently. To give yourself space to grieve and go through whatever emotion that comes up, and get psychosocial support and professional support. Yeah.
Mpadi, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Appreciate you. Thanks.
All right. Okay, so there you have it. That was Mpadi Makgalo from Heal SA. She is the founder. It's an organization focused on mental health of school children and the broader community. Up next is the latest in the world of sport with Rachel Makura. Do stay with us.